To be a sports fan is to accept that some boundaries are simply part of the landscape. We are conditioned to look at history books and believe certain limits are permanent features of the game. Take the New York Knicks. Since 1973, generations of fans grew up in a world where a championship at Madison Square Garden was a historical artifact rather than a modern reality. We see it in the statistics too. For years, the NFL's single-season sack record sat behind a hard ceiling of 22.5, a number that seemed to represent the absolute physical limit of a pass rusher. Even the stages used to celebrate these athletes had their own barriers. The ESPY Awards, a cornerstone of sports culture, went a full 25 years without a Latino host at the helm. When these geographic, statistical, and cultural walls remain unbroken for decades, the sport's identity settles around those limits, treating them as fixed constants of the game. On July 15, 2026, the industry moved its geographical center to New York's Lincoln Center. At Lincoln Center, these historical limitations collided into a single event, ending decades of sports world stagnation. These trophies serve as physical markers, proving that a specific era of limitation has concluded. The relocation to Manhattan placed the spotlight directly on the hometown heroes, a New York Knicks roster that had just ended the city's 53-year championship drought. Point guard Jalen Brunson dominated the hardware, winning Best Athlete, Best NBA Player, and Best Championship Performance. The recognition extended to the individual moments that made the title possible, with OG Anunoby's Game 4 tip-in winning Best Play. For the host city, the emotional weight of a half-century wait transformed these standard athletes into a moment of collective release. While the Knicks broke a team curse, other athletes spent 2026 attacking the absolute metrics of what the human body is expected to do. Cleveland Browns defender Myles Garrett established a new physical benchmark by taking down the NFL's single-season sack record. This data shows the historical ceiling for pass rushers. For decades, the best in the world stopped at 22.5 sacks. Garrett moved that line by recording 23. He was joined by other statistical outliers, like Alysa Liu, who broke a 24-year gold medal gap for U.S. women's skating, and Fernando Mendoza, who achieved a rare Heisman and national championship sweep in the same season. Statistical outliers force entire leagues to recalibrate. They demonstrate that what was previously seen as a hard limit was actually just a temporary plateau. The evening's shifts weren't limited to the scoreboard or the record books. They reached into the cultural identity of the sports world itself. Marcello Hernández ended a 25-year representational gap by stepping out as the first Latino ESPYs host since the turn of the millennium. Using his opening monologue, he made the case that immigrant athletes are not just part of American sports, but its foundational core. The ceremony emphasized this push for representation by posthumously awarding Jason Collins the Arthur Ashe Award and recognizing Jim Abbott with the Jimmy V Award. These moments show that progress isn't just about changing the records, but about expanding who is allowed to be included in the narrative of greatness. The 2026 ESPYs documented the collapse of geographic droughts, statistical ceilings, and long-standing cultural lags. Watching these specific, entrenched walls fall expands the collective imagination. It forces us to reconsider which other permanent barriers are actually vulnerable. The 2026 ceremony functioned as an explicit inventory of how much the sports landscape shifted in a single year. The legacy of this year lies in the new, higher baseline it establishes for the next generation of athletes.